So the question I've been thinking about for the past couple of days is what will sell in the personal computing industry, and there's a bunch of different ways you can kind of look at it. There's a lot of good innovation happening in a lot of different areas, but the question is really simple: what's going to sell either in the smartphone industry itself, in when it comes to computing in general? And I think the most logical question in my mind that you can start with is what is coming after the smartphone. So my sense here is that, and just a general observation, but a lot of different technologies are kind of evolving in a divergent fashion. So there's a lot of good innovation happening in a lot of different areas, and I'm really excited to see some of these constructs take off. Um, the promise of technology in this sphere, from the perspective of making human lives better, improve the quality of human lives by uh, powering different experiences, as well as making more knowledge available to a larger, if not the complete subset of the earthly population. So, coming back to the question, I kind of looked at it from a bunch of different angles, and I've already kind of made a video about the four areas. There are five areas really, which I believe could truly revolutionize the personal computing experience. So you have the rise of what I call ubiquitous computing, that is hardware independent. It doesn't have a dependency upon hardware. In my mind, it's still 8 to 10 years away, that technology for it to be actually working in a robust um, kind of functioning way. It's still 8 to 10 years out. You need a couple of developments for that kind of vision to take off. Then you have display systems. Obviously, for you to have ubiquitous computing, you need a new way of displaying information. Then uh, communications in general. So you need newer ways of connecting different machines and constructs. And last but not the least is two in a box, which is really the rise of true intelligent assistants, and you have that coupled with brain-machine interfaces, so external brain-machine interfaces. So really a new kind of medium. So you, again, don't have to be dependent upon this in order to be able to interact with machines. You can just talk, or maybe you control machines at the speed of thought. So these are all kind of, I think most of these areas are a couple of years out. So I think there's, there's the kind of, I was kind of thinking about building the links to this such a reality. So if this is 8 to 10 years out and we're here, then what's in the middle, and how do we get from here to here and onwards? But the premise, or the purpose of this video is really to kind of talk a little bit about this area in the middle, the next 8 years, if you want to call it that. And so I think right off the bat, one of the things I kind of think about is that the divergent evolution of technology, again, is a very useful phenomenon. You need the individual innovations to happen in each one of these spaces, because you never know what's going to come out of those innovations, first of all, and what kind of mediums they will have a capacity to power. So if I kind of went in and spoke about each one of these areas in detail, that's going to be taking too long. But I think right off the bat, I kind of look at it as I think something needs to be introduced that's going to be more convergent, meaning that you take a little bit from each one of the domains and try to bring it together in a cohesive experience. Just like this smartphone ended up replacing a lot of different innovations, from the Walkman to, I don't know, the typewriter to the camcorder, to the computer itself. It was like there's an image on the internet where they kind of showcase all the different inventions, and all of them were replaced by the smartphone. The filing system, the cabinets, like the works. There's a long list of things, inventions. Similarly, what I think needs to happen is we got to borrow a little bit from that design and take the elements from the kind of different devices that we are beginning to use on a daily basis and try and bring it together in a convergent fashion. So again, right at the top of my mind, I think the three areas or the three innovations that we all potentially use on a daily basis are the tablet, the smartphone, the computer itself, and increasingly wearables. So my sense is that whoever does a really good job of integrating elements from each one of these four inventions or mechanisms of powering computation, whichever company does that and does that really well, does a good job at that, will, I strongly suspect, thrive. And so I think the most logical progression in that domain will be potentially a merger of the smartphone coupled with the wearables. And there's a bunch of different ways, again, you can do that. And we kind of look at the different technologies that could power such an experience. But really, it's doing so would effectively chart out the path for providing computational systems, or ways by which more computation can be made available to a larger subset of the earthly population. Um, if you want to call it the computing platform of the future, that's, I think, going to be one of the key and pivotal areas. So the question is, what does that mean? Like, I'm not going to talk about too literal of examples because I think that's going to be giving away too much. But I wonder how many other people out there are actually thinking about such problems. Today we have a lot of different technologies that can power a lot of different experiences beyond just computation itself. And these are really the questions we need to start thinking about. So my sense is, and let's talk about the other constructs at this point. Just briefly spoke about the convergent nature of some of these technologies. So my sense is that there will be different layers of computation in the future. And there will be different realms or realities. And it remains to be seen whether one system will power all of these. Most probably, it's a umbrella term that we use today is the cloud. But the cloud is going to be able to power unimaginable experiences in the future, and it's all a question of computation. So right now, by and large, the cloud is kind of leveraged for as a medium for on a personal computing basis for storage, file storage, kind of back up your data on the cloud. From an enterprise point of view, the same, along with being able to power up a lot of the different apps or software, SaaS kind of models. And like the whole startup movement is largely built upon Amazon, which is again is a cloud architecture. So these are the kind of things we're leveraging the cloud for today. But the thing is, with the increase in the ability to be able to provide more computation, like this mostly, we kind of started talking about computer engineering at this point. So I want to get into the conversation about Moore's law slowing down and everything. I'm not saying it's a redundant conversation, but I'm very hopeful. I'm kind of looking at a bunch of different technologies. I think there's going to be breakthroughs that could really make Moore's law obsolete. And I think that's a very important movement as well. I think whoever focuses on it, it's not an easy endeavor, but it's not an impossible endeavor at that. But I really suspect whoever kind of focuses on that and gets the breakthrough will end up. I think it's going to be akin to another, like the invention of the microchip and everything that has been powered on top of that. So like the next evolution of computational systems is almost kind of like that movement. Because again, it goes back to those realities I'm talking about, the construct. So you've got potentially one layer of So coming back to the example I was talking about, like you've got all these different ways of using the cloud today, but in the future you're going to be able to power entire realities up from the cloud. Maybe you wouldn't need an Xbox or a PS3 or PS4 or whatever is used in terms of console. You will plug directly into the cloud, and most of the computation is going to be done on the cloud itself. You're just going to be interacting with the output. So just one. Then more computation available cheaply for more people. Like potentially everyone could be a data scientist, so you could run massive amounts of computation on the cloud for literally a whole bunch of different things, and you pay like pennies for something like that. And that's just the start. That is just the start when it comes to the true promise of what the cloud can power. And in terms of the layers, so you'd have a layer of virtual reality. My sense is people are going to be spending a lot of time in the future when it comes to virtual reality constructs, which will probably start mimicking the real world. And then you kind of talk about different layers when it comes to that. There's a virtual layer of the real world or the physical world, and then you have augmented reality, so you can interact with different layers in a physical sense. Then you could have potentially other layers as well. Like it's kind of limited to your imagination at that point. It's like those are the kind of constructs I'm looking at from that point of view. But so again, so that's kind of like these kind of things I think will start taking off. It's not like 8 years are going to pass and they're going to take off. A lot of development is already happening in a lot of these different areas. But I think in beyond the next 7 to 8 years, I think these kind of constructs are really going to start taking off. Like virtual reality will really take off after 8 years. Augmented reality will like really take off after 8 years. So again, coming back to the question, what is it between now and then that we can sell and sell a lot of? And I think whoever focuses on bridging those dots, those gaps, and then timing their product management cycles accordingly in order to be able to leverage the immense innovation that has happened in some of the other constructs or realms that have shared, I think that company will thrive. It's not to say that it's going to be one company. It could be a bunch of kids in a garage somewhere that could completely come and disrupt a $1 trillion companies. Companies like Apple and Google are getting pretty close to $1 trillion valuations. Or maybe it will be Apple or Google that will end up redefining the different mechanisms by which computation is done. So that was kind of like the painting a vision of where I think personal computing is going. Again, if I made that video about the 4 areas, it was a little out, so I'm kind of working on merging the gap between the two realities. So I think, in a functional sense, what I think could happen is, let's talk about like very concrete, functional things that we can do today in order to be able to build upon this movement. So one of the things right off the top of my head that I can think of is something called optoelectronics. So you've got a lot of cool innovation happening in the realm of optoelectronics. And one of the applications I've seen is the creation of very thin glass or display material. It's like thinner than a human hair. And these kind of display devices are covering a whole bunch of different realities, all the way from super thin TVs to display systems in commercial settings of all sorts, display systems for automobiles, wearables, the works, smartphones, maybe even like just the display system itself without any dependency upon a bulky, which kind of looks, the smartphone looks bulky in comparison to what a um, display device running on top of optoelectronics could power. So my sense is that combining something like that with augmented reality would be the first step towards embarking upon this new journey. And then you kind of build segues from that into potentially other constructs. Maybe not, that's going to be too divergent of a model. But what you want to do is that however this comes about, there's again a lot of different innovations happening in a bunch of these areas, but however you slice and dice it, you want to again time it in a way that allows you to tap into some of the larger movements that are happening. Uh, so computation is readily available, more computation for more people. IoT or Internet of Things will be a reality in a very short amount of time. So intelligent sensors, potentially actuators, um, better connectivity in general, and some of the other things I mentioned. So, so however you go about categorizing or defining the problem, you need to make use of these movements, if you want to call it. You also have to start thinking in terms of the killer app that one, it's not actually going to be a killer app in this sense. It would be more like a core ingredient of the computing device or platform itself. So, my sense here has always been that from a user interaction and experience point of view, the designs that we are leveraging today are by and large designs that were pioneered in the 60s by Douglas Engelbart. Kind of made a couple of cryptic blog posts about this. And most of my blog posts are kind of cryptic because I don't want to give away all my ideas quickly. All about putting it together in your mind. But anyway, so yeah, the construct, if you want to call it a killer app, that's one thing. But the one main component that is able to power a new kind of computing experience should do one job, and it should do it really well. And here I think that taking out the fuss from interacting with the machines, whoever does that really well will end up defining which platform for the computer is leveraged in the future. And here I think intelligent assistant, you can call them artificial, but really assistants built into, like baked into the operating system that can help with the interaction pieces would do really well. So, you don't have to pick up your phone and talk to your smartphone every time. What if your environment was sentient? You could just kind of talk about what you're looking for, searching for, scheduling an appointment, checking up on messages, replying back to somebody, researching something. And I mean, for the foreseeable future, you'd still be talking about it, but there will come a point where you just think about it and it would be there. And the building blocks for all these technologies are already there. So I think the transition, the way I think I think it's going to happen in my mind is that we will go from, first of all, I think there's again a lot of opportunity when it comes to marrying this with the smartphone. So if whoever kind of figures out how to turn this into one single device, it turns into a wearable or it turns into a computing device that you can interact with. So whoever does that and does that really well will end up making a lot of money. That's one. That construct will transition into a medium or a platform, if you want to call it, that would bring in augmented reality very efficiently. So whether it's an offshoot of it or something else, that's going to be the second evolution when it comes to the medium or the platform. And you kind of go from that point onwards. However that medium evolves, how it ties hooks into the different realities, whether it be virtual reality or making um, better use of Internet of Things or something else. Um, that I think will end up defining how that movement happens from within the next 8 years, basically. And yeah, that's really it. Just kind of taking a look at my notes. So in short, we're kind of looking at disrupting the smartphone, tablet, wearable kind of area, and concurrently charting out a wider strategy of how uh, some of the other developments that are happening, how they will mature with time, and how that strategy can be built in order to be able to have one kind of experience tied in with another and build inventions that help us make use of such phenomena. So I think if I kind of look 9 years from now, um, I sincerely believe the pace of technological innovations will pick up steam. Uh, it's going to be very fast compared to uh, how innovations have generally happened in the future. And if we kind of look back, so I kind of started with coding basic on my Atari when I was 7 or 6, and I've kind of been a systems administrator most of my life. So I've seen the complete evolution of, I've had the chance to witness the complete evolution of operating systems. Um, from basic is not an operating system, but I kind of like went from DOS to Windows 3.1 and to NT, Windows NT, and did the whole thing. Kind of went to open source after that, yada yada yada. But like if you kind of look back and like if I kind of compare something like the operating system I use today to DOS, it just looks so Neanderthal. And I suspect if we could somehow leap into the year 2025, it's less than 10 years from now, and if we look back, then a lot of the ways by which we interact with the computers and computing in general would seem very Neanderthal. Um, so I can completely see in my mind how something like brain-machine interfaces, external, internal, I don't know how it's going to happen, most probably external, how they would be made use of on a daily basis. We're going to be talking to the machines. Machines are going to be talking back to us, bringing information in a very rich, intelligent fashion. Search is going to become much more intelligent. It's going to be able to power true experience of discovery. It's going to be more computation available for more people. We will see VR would have completely matured by that time, and it's going to be able to power experiences that are beyond anyone's imagination. I think, but it's going to be pretty close to, I think, the real world experience. I think, I'm not sure. It all goes back to that problem of computer engineering and whether we're able to conjure or power computational systems that have the ability to be able to get us better throughputs. But I mean, however you kind of look at it, is you got to look at functioning technology today and see what kind of state is it in, how it potentially mature, what kind of experiences is it going to be able to power. So everything is coming together from, again, the computational aspect, the display system with quantum dots. You got to kind of take a look at that and see how it's going to mature in the future. Virtual reality itself, you just kind of throw more computation at it, come out with something like the quantum dot technology, and boom, you've got an amazing virtual reality experience happening. Um, gathering more data around from our surroundings to be able to build modeling systems of the future, increased connectivity, better throughputs. I mean, the list is endless in terms of the many innovations that are happening in a lot of different areas. Again, the key question is, how do you put them together? Which pieces do you put together? How do you focus on the nuances? And what is the purpose of putting those nuances together? What kind of experiences does one want to power beyond just personal computing itself? And those, I think, are all important questions. The question again today is, how do you create the computing platform of the future, and what do you create so that the market would accept it and readily accept it, and you could sell a lot of it? So just really some thoughts and ideas, which I suspect could get us to such a reality in the future. Yeah, I'm gonna end it at this note.